Well, welcome everybody. Let's get started. It's 6:32, and we got a big meeting tonight planned, and we're really excited about it. Um, it's great to have everybody here. Thanks for being here on a beautiful, cold Thursday night. Um, my name is Bill Hogseth. I'm the organizing director at GROWW, and you all are at the very first, what we're calling our big tent meetings. This is the first of hopefully what is going to be many over the years as we build our community here. The hope for these meetings is that this is a space where all of our leaders can come together to be part of the big tent that we're building together. A big tent being a place where people from all walks of life can come together and find common cause. And the reason we wanted to create this space is because we've got so many leaders who are in the public arena right now. We this week we had Bob Moline and Reese Vitersall down in Madison testifying in front of the Wisconsin state legislature advocating for Final Five voting. Our leaders, Teresa Davis and Rainbow Berry, were on the Pierce County Groundwater Committee this week. Our leader, Troy Gansluckner, was at the Salem Town Planning Commission proposing an ordinance to regulate CAFOs in that township. We've got leaders who are all over, and we wanted to create a space where they could come together instead of being out in silos. And also, in just 1 month, all of our emerging leaders are going to come together at the end of January for our annual leadership training that we call Grassroots School. And if that's something you're interested in being a part of, there's still time for you to register. Sophia will drop a link into the chat for you to check it out. So a little bit about this meeting. We plan for this to be a bi-monthly meeting every other month. And so this is going to be a meeting held 6 times a year. Sometimes it's going to be on Zoom. Sometimes it's going to be in person. And we hope that this is a place where you can come together to reconnect with people you know, meet new people, and really keep growing the relations that are the engine of our organization. Because we're building a movement, right? We're not just building a bunch of separate campaigns and separate leaders out there working on different things. We want to work in relation with each other instead of in isolation with each other. So I want to share the agenda with you and what tonight's going to look like. And if Janelle, you could you share your screen? We can walk through that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also just quick Zoom etiquette. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. And also please do use the chat. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know what if the spirits got you, questions, anything. Put those in the chat and we'll be keeping our eye on it throughout the night. So our agenda for the night is we're going to first start with this. We're going to welcome you. We're going to review the agenda. This is me welcoming you. And then we're going to do a round of introductions so you all know who's here. And then we're going to read out loud our preamble. And Taylor Stevens is going to do that for us. And that's just a short, simple statement about who we are and what we believe in. And then we're going to dive into the topic of building local power. We're going to explore our newly created platform, which is an articulation of the values and issues that are at the heart of our organization. And then we're going to talk about our All in Favor campaign, where we're starting to organize through local governments, and John Calabrese is going to share about that, as well as Wayne Rowan, who's one of our leaders on that team. And then we have a special guest coming all the way from the Mountain State, Katie Lauer from West Virginia Can't Wait, is going to share what they've learned doing this type of work in West Virginia. And they're like several years out ahead of where we are. And so really looking for some inspiration to see what this could all amount to and what it's amounted to for someone else, another organization like Katie's. Katie's here. So Katie, you want to wave? So, and then we'll talk about next steps, where we're going from here, and then we'll evaluate, and then we'll be done. So how does that sound? Y'all into it? You think you're in the right place? Okay, right on. I'm going to hand it over to Danny, who's going to run some introductions for us.
Yes, we're doing introduction. So since we've got too many people to get around to everyone, I'll ask that you put in the chat just your name and where you're calling from, and then what draws you to be a part of the GROW community. So essentially, why are you here? and feel free to put messages in chat. I'll call on a few of you. Matthew Crow, where are you calling from today, and why are you here?
Well, I'm calling from Menominee, Wisconsin, and I'm here because John Calabrese invited me, and I've been in contact with John for a while now. But me and my family moved out here from Wyoming about 3 years ago. Currently on the executive board with the Dunn County Democrats, but not just wanting to do the partisan stuff, but also wanting to get more into the rural movements and connect and have some type of progressive movements in rural America. And when we show up in rural areas, we give rural America another option. And I think conservatives or rural America has left Democrats mainly because Democrats left them. And I think if we show up there, we'll get more people to be on board with our movements.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Matthew. And then I'm seeing in chat as well, Lynn Weekskamp is here. It's great to see you here, Lynn, calling from River Falls, and working to strengthen our democracy. That's great to see. Tova, great to have you here. See that you want an active community for social, economic, and environmental health. That's all great to hear. We'll get into that a little bit as we look at our platform. Virginia, I'm wondering if you would like to come off mute and introduce yourself, say where you're from, and why you're here.
Virginia Draft. I'm from Emerald, Wisconsin, mile and a half away from Emerald Sky Dairy. So personally and involved in lots of issues with water, clean water, neighbors with pollution in their wells, and complaints about the air quality, traffic with the trucks, and just what's going on, the threat of digesters. That's a biggie. And I was just at Wisconsin Farmers Union for 3 days, and we did get the word methane removed from our policy thing. So we're kind of convinced a few people that no, we're not for this digester stuff. So, but that's going to be a battle because there's some people that still think it's the gift that manure needs. We know better now from what we've seen, what we have to put up with. So that's about it.
Yeah, well, great. Thank you for sharing, Virginia. Good to have you here. I know you guys have done a lot of really good organizing work in Emerald. For example, your Clean Water Forum a couple months back, I recall going to, and that was great. So yeah, glad that you're here. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm glad that we're here together today for our first Big Tent meeting. I'm going to be handing it off now to Taylor Stevens, who is going to give us a little bit of a preamble of our platform and value statement.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening. I am Taylor Stevens. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the River Falls and Prescott, Wisconsin communities. And GROWW has done some pretty spectacular things. So if you'll all just take a deep breath with me, ground yourself for a moment. GROWW belongs to us. GROWW, we belong to GROWW. Together, we are working across Barron, Buffalo, Dunn, Pepin, Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties to build a world where all of us can flourish and be free. Our organization is a vehicle for communities to build and exercise power to make that world a reality. We live in cities, small towns, and rural areas. We are old, young and old, rich and poor, white, black, and brown. We will not be divided by false narratives that pit us against each other. We take action because we believe that change is necessary, and it is possible if we courageously leap into the public arena.
Woohoo! Thank you, Taylor. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you all tonight. I'm so energized by seeing all your beautiful faces and knowing all the ways that we're stepping up together into the public arena to create change. So I have the honor this evening of presenting GROW's value, vision, and platform. But before I dive into that goodness, I just want to share a little bit with you why that's so important to me, to be able to speak together of what unites us. So my mom was born in 1954 on a beautiful farm in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, which is kind of halfway between Madison and Milwaukee. And I've driven by it many, many times because I've taken my mom to visit her cousin. And actually, I just remembered I wanted to show you. I'm going to show you. So as I tell you the story, you can imagine them. Here's my mom on the left and her cousin on the right. So I've taken my mom to visit her cousin Judy many times, and I get to see where my mom and her siblings went swimming in the river during their childhood, where they played hide and go seek in the woods, and where they got warm milk straight from the cows sometimes for a treat. And my grandma was a piano teacher. My grandpa was a farmer. They grew crops and had dairy cows and chickens, and the house was surrounded by fields. And during my mom's childhood, DDT was legal. For my grandpa and the other farmers in the area, it was a fantastic insecticide that gave them higher yields. It was not only, and it wasn't easy for them to make ends meet for a family of 7. So anything that could bring in a little bit more income was really welcome. The fields around the house were sprayed with DDT, and my mom and her siblings from a very young age were running around breathing it in, just as it also killed the unwanted bugs on the crops. Already in the 1950s, when my mom was born, there were signs that DDT was bad for human health and bad for the environment in general. And as people learned more and more about DDT's harmful effects, they got organized and a powerful environmental movement was born. And it just reminds me that when people are united around a clear platform, we can create change. And in 1972, the EPA did ban or make DDT illegal. But by then, my mom was 18 years old. Eventually, the World Health Organization and other bodies also classified DDT as a probable carcinogen. Now, many years later, my mom is 69 years old. She has terminal cancer, and I spend a lot of time going to appointments with my mom, discussing the best course of action, thinking about ways to make life a little bit more comfortable for her in tough times. And what I've just shared with you right now is one thread in my life that shapes the way I see the world. This is one of many threads that shapes my own personal values, my vision, the issues that are most important to me. And all of you have those threads in your life too. So when we decided that we wanted to create a value, visions, and platform statement for the organization so that we could know what is most important to our community, what do we want to protect, what do we need to change, we decided to invest a good chunk of time and energy into figuring that out. So over the course of 6 months this year, grassroots leaders, some of you, some staff people, some board members all came together to collect this information and listen in our community. So we took information from our door knocking campaign in 2022. We had many one-to-one meetings, an online survey, a community meeting, and all of this culminated in an event, Grow Fest, that many of you were at, where we discussed, amended, and finally ratified our very first GROW values, vision, and platform statement. So I want to take a moment and look through that with you. We have values that we established together, and I would like to invite someone in the room to read these for you. Anne Leek, are you here? Could you unmute and read the values for us, please?
Yes, Janelle. I'm here.
I figured you would be.
Okay, our values, community. We focus our work on our community. We stand with the people who add meaning to our lives and sustain us through their trust, understanding, and care. Power. We make positive, lasting change and write our own futures by building, organizing, and wielding power together. Stewardship. We take care of what is most valuable to us, people, community, land, water, so that it can be shared with our children and our children's children. Solidarity. We are united in collective action across race, gender, income, ability, and geography, leaving no one behind. Listening. We build real connection and resist division by listening to understand each other and all of our values, interests, hopes, and fears.
Thank you, Anne. I want to invite you all to think about what resonates especially with you tonight. Maybe put it in the chat. Why does that resonate with you? What feels where you have a lot of alignment? Which one feels the strongest to you tonight? And Sophia put in the chat the link to the value vision and platform, and I invite you all to go there because there's this very beautiful vision that's been laid out about what we can create together through our people power. So I invite you to read that. But we're going to dive in together right now to the platform part. So our platform has 3 pillars. So I have 3 slides for this. And Linda Vivoda Sade, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to come off mute and help me read these. Are you willing and available?
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. So I've got 3 slides. If you could read the orange boxes. So the first one's democracy.
We support building a political system that is fair, accessible, and responsive to all of us.
And economic justice.
We support building a robust economy where everyone's basic human needs are met, regardless of immigration status. We support all people having equal access to a healthy, safe, and sustainable environment.
Awesome. And that's environmental justice. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing it. So now we have the GROW values, vision, and platform statement. And in conjunction with our mission, it can guide the work we do, help us know where to put our energy, where to launch campaigns. And we have our this is our North Star, and we have our values to guide us along the way. So on that, after that little tour of our values, vision, and platform, I'm going to pass it back to Bill.
Thanks, Janelle. And if you all have a chance to take a look at the document, there's more detail in there about each of those buckets around democracy, economic justice, and stewardship. Is it stewardship? Environmental justice. There's a lot in there, and a lot of thought was put into that, and encourage you to take a look. But right now, we really want to hear what resonates with you about this statement that we've put together that really defines who we are as a community and as an organization. So we're gonna go into breakout rooms. Maybe there'll be 2, 3, or 4 of you all, and it'll be an opportunity for you to meet new people, reconnect with old friends, and share what resonated with you, either one of the values or one of the aspects of the platform in terms of democracy, economic justice, or environmental justice, or one of those little bullet points in there around like housing or land use or climate or any aspect. Feel free to share what resonated with you, and then listen to what resonated from others as well. Before you dive into the conversation, please introduce yourself. And let people know who you are, where you're from, and why you're here. How does that sound? Great. We're going to do that for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and hear what you all learned about each other, and hear about the new relationships you made, and we're gonna hear about what resonates with you about our platform. So have fun. Welcome back, everybody. I see some smiles, and that's good. That's a good thing. Hopefully you had a good conversation, and we would love to hear what's coming up for you and resonating with the values and platform that we've got now as a GROW community. Pat, would you like to share? And before you share, could you just say your name and where you're from so everybody on the call can get to know you? Pat, what came up in the group you were talking with?
Okay, we talked about the environmental justice. We talked about the fact that you know, with the developments going around the community.
I'm sorry, what's going on in the community?
We talked about the developments that are going around and how it might impact. And we talked about one particular development. And I guess, you know, I guess we need to make a compromise between, you know, the economic benefits of this development that's going on right across from the eco village, and also making sure that they have some kind of a community garden in there, because that used to be a very fertile farm soil. So we kind of talked about that, and we talked about the language, you know, what kind of language we can use to, you know, build unity.
Say more about that. How do we build unity, Pat?
Okay, well, they mentioned, you know, the fact that, you know, regardless of whether like Democrats or Republicans, you know, we talked about the final fine voting, and you know, the fact that we need to work together as a community and not be so divisive.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. Lynn, how about you? What came up in the group that you were talking with?
Well, ironically, we were in the same group with
Oh,
Pat. So yeah, we're more talking about finding those common values for talking points. And actually, that's what really draws my personal strong attraction to GROW, because we're surrounded by people that I know we don't share the same political views, but we understand certain values and we work well together. And somehow we need that to be the foundation for building relationships and moving past this very extreme you know, scenario that we have now. Because
yeah.
I think we have a lot of commonality. And I really that's what I love about GROW.
Yeah. How do you see GROW being a vehicle for that? I'm curious. What is it about GROW that seems to be getting at that?
Well, you know, I think the Final Five voting was great. You know, I've used that in talking points with some of my coworkers that I know I'm diametrically opposed to. But we can really agree on that. Because neither one of us like the extremes. So that seems really hopeful. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. And you know, again, just the values of what it is we want, and then can we see, you know, the long range you know, goals? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
In addition to these very, you know, just really divisive things that trip us all up.
Have you been to a Final Five house party that GROW has held, Lynn?
I have been to a couple of those,
Okay.
yeah.
A couple.
Yeah, well, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
love
the
it.
original one, and yeah,
Great.
yeah, very effective. Yeah, I liked it.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yep.
Time for a few more. Hey, Tom, what came up in your group? Or were you in Pat and Lynn's group too? Or
No, I was not. I had the pleasure of meeting Wayne and Don and Ann, and we spent some time just introducing ourselves and talking about the things that brought us to GROW, and then a little bit about just kind of what our priorities are. So Don and Ann spoke a little bit about how they tend to focus on the gerrymandering and Final Five issues, which are critically important. We're not going to have much impact, and we can't restore local control and have our voice heard if we can't fix the foundational problems in our democracy. And we talked a little bit about just how pronounced those are in Wisconsin. The fact that we are almost hopelessly gerrymandered. So that's super important. We talked a little bit about the importance of agriculture in reshaping our rural communities and how we have to very deliberately connect those dots. And then we started to talk a little bit, just as we ran out of time, about how we all need to just simply do a better job of speaking to our rural friends and neighbors generally. And I think this is something that is not a Wisconsin problem and not a GROW problem, but it's a national problem. I think there's a huge disconnect in terms of the way we talk to rural voters and speak to the interests of people who live in, like my neighbors. I mean, I'm pretty rural, about as rural as it gets for this part of Western Wisconsin. And I work with farmers. I work with farmers every day as part of my job. And there are things we can say, and there's language we can use that can reach them. There is definitely common ground, and there are some topics and particular language we probably want to avoid.
Hey, Tom,
yes,
you've been door knocking with us.
I have.
Can you just say a little bit about what those conversations are like?
They're usually really enjoyable and tend to be fruitful. If you can engage in those first couple of minutes and just get them to start talking, that's the whole key. And I'm not going to pretend to be particularly good at this. I would like to be better at it. Bill is a master, so anyone who wants, there is an art to this for sure. But by the second time I was doing it, I felt like I was just barely beginning to get it was beginning to click how you can engage them in a conversation and then get them talking and listen. And then it's simply a matter of pulling out the things that are important to them. And there is always going to be some common ground. There's always going to be something you can latch onto that you can keep that conversation going. And the longer you can keep that conversation going, the more they're going to share with you. And that's the whole key. And I've yet to see anybody who's quite as good at it as Bill, but I'm sure there's probably some other folks in this audience who've taken the ball and run with it. But
you're a great door knocker, Tom. And I hope everybody here on the call gets a chance to knock doors with all of us, because it is it's a way to restore your hope in the world, just one person at a time. Thank you, everybody. I get a lot of clarity and hope and from what is articulated in our values, vision, and platform, not just because of what's in there, but because it's ours. It isn't something we adopted from some other group. We developed it on our own, and we agreed to it, and we debated it, and it's ours. And so that feels really special to me. And I want to transition us now into a conversation of how do we actually bring this thing to life. I mean, all of our campaigns are bringing this platform to life, but what's really special about having it right now is that we can use this to start driving an agenda in our local governments, city councils, school boards, county boards, mayor's offices. And I'm going to hand the mic over to John Calabrese now, who's going to share with you about our new project called All in Favor. John.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to see everybody, and it's great to be here. And yes, all of this, the values and platform, came from all the door knocking that Tom was talking about, and the way he looked and learned from Bill. And we went to the people and we asked them what keeps them up at night. And that's where the values and platform statement came from. And if we want to achieve that, which we were talking in our breakout room, which I was fortunate enough to be with familiar faces that I've known before, and just talked about things that we teach our kids, you know, basic things that you learn in kindergarten: listening and sharing and community and how interesting it is that those things have become radical in this day and age. And the people who are dividing us and the people who are exploiting our land and our labor and our time and everything, the thing they fear the most is all of us coming together and all of us sharing and listening and having solidarity and uniting with our neighbors. And because of all these things that our neighbors have told us that they desire and they keep the problems that keep them up at night that we would like fixed, they necessarily go through, if we hope to change them locally here in Western Wisconsin, they go through local nonpartisan elected governments. And so we launched the All in Favor campaign. We all did, all of you did. And we are starting now the spring election for these local offices that Bill mentioned. County board, city council, school board, is in April 2nd in 2024. So it's coming soon. It'll be here before you know it. And we are not a group of people who are just gonna, you know, beg people to run for office and pat ourselves on the back when we get somebody in there. We're hoping to implement the agenda and the values and platform to make these changes through these local governments. And so we've convened an All in Favor team that is starting to meet and starting to grow. And from now until April 2nd, we'll be in campaign mode. We'll be doing those typical campaign things that people do, but doing it in the GROW way, with door knocking and phone banking and having get-togethers and parties and reminding us all why we're in this work. And as we go, in the next month or two, we're going to be endorsing candidates. And I was a candidate before, and I never held too much faith in endorsements, what they're worth. But a GROW endorsement, imagine that. You have people who hold these values and platforms close to their heart, who are going to go knock on doors in these small local elections that are often won by 5, 10 votes. It doesn't happen. Endorsements don't happen in these races in this part of the country. And it really is going to mean something, and we could really make some noise. We could really get some people in there. And then after the election on April 2nd, we're going to shift the team into a co-governing cohort where GROW endorsed candidates who win will get to meet regularly with people like all of us on this call, so we can remind and talk about the values and platform and give people the confidence to lean into tension and fear on these local governments. Because I am a local elected official myself, and we don't get an orientation that's too deep. We don't even know all the ways to push an agenda, to get something on the agenda of committees, to speak up. There's a fear, there is a tendency when you get in these local governments to let the people who do the administration call the shots. There's a tendency to keep things the way that it's always been done. There is a tendency to act like a victim of the state, a victim of the federal government. People are governing alone, and I'm one of them. All summer long, I spoke to over 60 elected officials in the region, from the mayor of Barron in Barron County, all the way down to city council people in Alma and Buffalo County, and great conversations. And one of the big takeaways I got is that people feel like we're all governing alone. And so what if a co-governing cohort convened where people felt like they were governing together with all of us? And that's what we're trying to do. I remember as I started to meet all these other local officials across the region, I remembered this moment I had when I first was appointed to the Dunn County Board 5 years ago or so. Had the initial county board meeting in the basement of the city building, and it was dark, and and no windows. And then the next week I went to my first committee, which is the administrative committee, and it was in a different room upstairs. And it was winter time and it was a bright sunny day with snow outside, a bunch of windows. And I walked in and it was all these professional people. It was the county manager, it was the CFO, it was all these people with ties, and they handed me all this paperwork about an audit that was being done, and I was over my head. And one of the things on the agenda was this tough decision that we were going to have to make about cutting the home healthcare program in Dunn County. And I just felt like I was floating along like a piece of driftwood in a big storm on an ocean, and there's nothing I could do. And then I learned later what the home healthcare program was. And it was this beautiful program that Dunn County had where they brought healthcare services to people in rural outlying areas. And it was a difficult decision that we were going to have to make to cut this program. And I went to my neighbors where I live, and they didn't hear that this was happening. My fellow board members didn't hear that this was happening. And I went throughout the next couple months until budget session or budget time, and it just happened. We cut it. The program is gone. So it's not just the people who rely on the program. It was over half a dozen employees lost their job. And these are the things that happen under the radar. These are the things that don't need to happen. And if we have implemented the GROW values and platform, and we have cultivated people like all of us that are on this call, and we get them into those seats of power in these races that are, like I say, won by just a few seats, we could really shift the agenda into this radical, frightening vision of solidarity and listening and connection that strikes fear into the people who are keeping us from achieving the things in the mission statement of GROW. All of our neighbors living with dignity, able to make ends meet, and having a voice in the decisions that impact all of us. There's a reason that we exist. Everybody on this call, there's a reason that GROW exists. If everybody was living with dignity and could make ends meet, we wouldn't need to be here. But this is why we're here. And we're going to make our way into these local governments. And we're going to do it for all these wonderful reasons that we discussed in those breakout sessions. And so I mentioned that All in Favor campaign team is forming. We have some members on this call. Later on, we're going to invite anybody else on here to hear more about this campaign and join in the efforts between now and April and beyond, all year round. But right now, I want to pass it over to my friend Wayne Rowan in River Falls. He is a member of the All in Favor team. And if you could, Wayne, just a little bit about what this project means to you and why you're involved and what you think it might accomplish.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks, Bill, for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit. So a little bit of background on me. As John said, my name is Wayne Rowan. I'm 2 years retired, but I spent my career in corporate America, various director and VP roles, mostly in Fortune 500 companies, managing businesses that dealt with technical products and services. During that time, I spent very little time looking at or being involved in local governance. I was always too busy with my career to get too involved, or at least that's how I rationalized it. But when I retired, I joined the River Falls Library Board of Trustees. And oddly enough, that is sort of the beginning of my journey of how I came to intersect with GROW. As part of that Board of Trustees responsibility, I became aware of significant reductions in financial support over the past 5 years from the city of River Falls to support the library. And for those of you who are in River Falls or have been to River Falls and have driven by our library, you know that the library here is a crown jewel of this community. It's a library that was built about 25 years ago and would be the envy of communities twice our size. And so the fact that we have had declining financial support was both disturbing to me, and I think the more people I've talked to in the community, it is disturbing to the community that library would become in financial jeopardy over a period of time. So I spent a lot of 2023 out networking in the community to really address what we consider to be a looming financial emergency. And I'm very happy to say that small progress has been made to stabilize the city's financial report. I think just last night, the city council voted to create a memorandum of understanding with the library to stabilize funding. It doesn't solve the long-term issue. The long-term problem remains, and that is the River Falls City general view of the library and their financial commitment to sustaining it. And so we've still got a lot of work to do, but for the moment, at least, we've had a little bit of a reprieve. As I was out networking in the community, I sort of came away with three takeaways. I call the awareness from my journey. And one was the concerns about where power does and does not reside in our local government. And that was a shocker to me, and one that got me very concerned about where we're going and where institutions like the library are going in the future. I observed a lack of bold vision in local government, and I'm a futures guy, I'm a vision guy, I'm a strategy guy, and so I was concerned that I did not see a bold vision in River Falls. And probably most importantly, and the one that probably was the catalyst to drive me to really engage John and Bill, was that the actions of city government, in my view, are not reflecting the community goals. So as an example of that, the city is spending a lot of time and effort and money to create industrial parks to bring economic growth and create jobs in the community. And I think this is a very important thing to do. So I want to be careful that I'm not sending the wrong message here. I think it's an important thing to do, but I think the city has lost the awareness of the other factors that really incent families to move into communities. And those factors, I think, in River Falls include things like affordable housing and parks and recreation and the school system and the library. And I think the balance of focus that the city has right now, all with good intentions to create economic growth, I think are short-sighted and naive in terms of what else needs to be done to bring families into the community and grow this community profitably. So I'm excited about the idea of joining up with GROW and supporting candidates that have the potential and the abilities to make positive change. And I've been so impressed with the way that GROW has succinctly articulated just a very crisp and clean, and I think logical vision about how groups like this can really make a difference in finding and supporting the candidates to make those kinds of changes. So thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thank you, Wayne. Really appreciate it. And this is what happens when you listen and when you meet people and when you allow your circle to grow, pun intended. I met Sean Downing, who's also on the call in River Falls at the library this summer, and he's a city councilman in River Falls, and he was meeting with Wayne and Rebecca Ferguson, who is also on the library board. And I just listened in for a while, and then I knew that I wanted to have a conversation with Wayne. And really well said, really appreciate it. There's a real need for engagement and involvement in these local governments. Elections come and elections go, and people lose track and they take a break. We want to keep it going all year round. That's how we implement our values and our platform. And so thank you for that. And I'm going to hand it over to Bill to introduce our next guest.
Cool. Thanks, John. Thank you, Wayne. I love the journey you've been on, and I love that it's gotten you here with everybody on the call. We have time for some questions before we hear from Katie. Maybe just a few minutes. You've heard John share, you've heard Wayne's story. What's coming up for you? Any questions you want to share? Anything?
I have one thing I want to say. Can you hear me,
Please, Sean.
Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, so for our candidates who are here or who aren't here, and maybe I can let you guys contact them, people who are running are already getting signatures, just so people are aware of this. And my advice, and this is something that is strong advice, start as soon as you can, go out as much as you can, don't stop. Keep getting signatures. They're going to only accept so many. Just keep going. And, you need to tell people thank you when you get those signatures and with a card in the mail, and remind them of why they signed it. If you talked about 3 of your major pillars, that needs to be thank you for supporting the library. Thank you for supporting housing. Thank you for protecting our water. And your support is recognized, and we're going to do these things for you. So validating those needs is really important, and just a nonstop campaign of getting nomination signatures right now until the deadline is what I'm encouraging. And I've reached out to Michael Mitro, and I don't know all the different candidates personally, but if you hear me, this is a time to get out. You run the race that you're in, you only race against yourself. Forget about the other people, you do the best for you, but make that commitment to win.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, and deadline is January 2nd. And collecting signatures is a fun, easy way to meet your neighbors and talk about what matters to them. And thank you, Sean. We have just time for maybe one more question if someone had. Tom, you got a question.
Maybe more of a comment, a question. I would just encourage anyone who's on this call who lives in a community that doesn't have citywide elections where there are people actually competing for spots. In our township, my wife and I both have positions that we essentially inherited because no one else wants the job, and once you take it, you have it for life. So I would encourage anyone who lives in rural townships and wants to be engaged in that level of government. It requires essentially, you don't have to run. You'll have no competition. Show up to your local meetings, get involved, and you can have the limited influence we're allowed to have within the state legal structures we're working in. You can have that influence in your township. So anyone who's interested in doing that, there's no process. We don't have to get on the ballot or anything else. Show up, say you're interested in a position, you'll likely get a position. So
thanks, Tom. And thanks, everybody. And if you have more questions, or if you want to get on the ground during the local election season with GROW, working to elect candidates who share our values, Sophia just dropped John's contact info into the chat. This is a new experiment for us, y'all, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. And I want to now switch us over. About a year ago, I read an article written by an organizer in West Virginia, and I thought, holy shit, they're doing what we're trying to do, and they're doing it really well. And I was inspired, and I was made hopeful by what I was reading about the work that was being done in West Virginia. So I just said, I got to talk to this person and hear what's going on. And I reached out to Katie, and Katie's on the call with us today. And she's very generous with her time. And we had a series of conversations just about the work, especially around what is it like to do this work in rural places where people are often feel like they're forgotten about, and like their community's been left behind, and there's not that feeling of having a say in your future. So what does it feel like to go into the places where we live and do that work? And I'm really honored that Katie is here tonight. She's a fabulous organizer. I'll let her tell the story of what West Virginia Can't Wait has been doing and what that meant for their community. And so I'll just let Katie come off mute and share with us. And let's all give Katie a round of applause and a welcome from the GROW community for being here. Thanks, Katie.
It's fun to be on this call. I feel like I'm on a West Virginia Can't Wait call a little bit. Just like Virginia hearing you talk about clean water, or getting to hear about Lisa's land, or Tom, your stories about one-on-ones, it feels, and just sort of the surprise at what is possible when you talk to someone about what they care about or what keeps them up at night. So this feels a little bit like y'all are cousins or something, and it's nice to be here. I think I'm going to just say a little bit about sort of like the arc of our own history, and then I think we'll have some time for questions if there's things people want to talk more about. My background is in community organizing, not in electoral work. I maybe similar to Virginia, was spent a lot of my 20s being really being really concerned about climate change and safe drinking water access, where I live in a little tiny town of 3,000 people in southern West Virginia. And we're a small place, and maybe y'all know what that feels like, to just sort of be connected to a lot of people and sort of be in a mix. And so I'd been doing organizing here and had been building my own relationships. And in 2017, one of those people I'd been building relationships with said, I ran into him in a coffee shop one day, and he said, what if we tried to run a governor's race in the state? And what if we didn't just try to run a governor's race, but we use that governor's race as an excuse, a way, a vehicle to build political infrastructure that sort of went beyond one election cycle? And so that's what we did. So we started kind of quietly organizing in 2017. And then in 2018, we publicly launched this thing that 25 people sitting in a church basement decided to call West Virginia Can't Wait one day. And we have now been through many different kinds of seasons of work. And I think what might be most useful to share is what those different seasons have looked like. So for our first 18 months, 2 years of work, we were in this like big, powerful, growthful push. So we were running this governor's race, and we were recruiting people for roles as we were doing it. One of those roles was to also run as a candidate. One was to be a county captain, and one was to be a constituency captain. And all told, by the end of 2 years, we had recruited 101 people to run for office, and all over the state, up and down the ballot, and had recruited county captains in 54 of our 55 counties, and built out these constituency teams. And as GROWW is doing, we use that time to also build a pledge and platform together. And so our candidates that we endorse sign on to a no corporate cash pledge, among other things. And we built a platform through this, what we called the Summer of 10,000 Conversations. We sort of, is actually longer than a summer. We spent about 9 months having one-on-one conversations with people all over the state about what they want to see for the state's future. And I think ask questions like you asked, Tom, like, what's keeping you up at night? After that, so that was our big, like there was this 2 years of just like immense growth and building. And then we were in this phase of sort of figuring out what's next. What does our work look like next? And a lot of what we shifted into was supporting races in a much more, supporting people running for office in a much more concerted way, which meant like essentially helping to run people's campaigns. So we formed a PAC, and we got our hands dirty in like slate work and sort of the detailed day-to-day grind of helping candidates get elected. And at that point, we had all gotten our first 11 people into office. So I think, as John was pointing to, we also formed a governance team who was responsible for figuring out, like, what the heck do we do with this? How do we relate to folks that are in office that we work with? And so that governance program includes things like what John was describing, of like training about how the heck does it work in there, and how does it work in there if you're the only person who's kind of aligned with this organization. And it also turned out that we needed that work to include an accountability process, because we had people that we helped get into office that then kind of waffled around the initial pledge and platform that they had committed to us organizationally. I think that was also a period where we expanded some of our work to include things like it sounds like GROWW is doing, which is what we say is backing the folks to do the work that government fails to do. So people that are doing different kinds of organizing in their places that might not look like running for office, but might look like being on a library board, or might look like running a local campaign around safe drinking water access. So we've been, I think one of the biggest things I've learned in all of that time is that there is not a right way to do this work, and experiments are where it's at. That like our candidate work has looked different every single cycle, because each cycle we've learned something about what it looks like to run folks as a local slate, or what kinds of material resources are most helpful to candidates, or where are the places where there's actually momentum and activity. And the same thing with our issue-based work, et cetera. So I think the Bill and I have had a lot of chance to talk, sort of nerd out about the details of some of these things, like what's actually in some of our surveys, or like what do candidates get when we work with them as slates and things like that. Those we love sharing documents and tools and links and just like things that we've tried in a really concrete way. I think the concrete stuff can be most helpful in translating. And I think maybe on this call, the thing I most want to share is that it's tough out there. Like there's not a clear, easy path forward. And I think there's a way that we can get hard on ourselves. It's like, we're doing this thing and it's not working. And why is it not, why is our deep love and efforting not adding up to something shifting here? And I think the thing is, like, as I forget who was saying it earlier, but someone was naming, like, our places just there hasn't been infrastructure like the infrastructure you all are building in our places in a very long time. And we're building it together. And it's gonna take a while, and it's gonna take creativity, and it's gonna take giving ourselves the generosity of like, we're trying things, and then we get to learn from ourselves about how it works, and then we get to try something else and learn from ourselves again. And that like the caring and the trying is what the work actually is, and the things that end up in a survey are the things that, are our starter conversations on the doors. That's a bonus. Like this is the caring and trying experiments against tough odds is really what we're up to. Bill, is there any, I know it's a quick gloss over, but I'm happy to say any more.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I wonder what's coming up for folks on the call as you're hearing Katie share, like any curiosity that you want, any questions that you want to ask Katie?
It sounds, this is Ed Ludwig Kraus. I just have a quick question. It sounds as though the end of your presentation just now I felt you were frustrated and maybe weren't getting as much done as you would liked, but overall it sounds like you are getting things done. And what timeline is this whole process taken up?
Yeah, in this formation, we've been organizing for 5 years, and on the candidate front, we've had 11 folks elected our first cycle, and then we have many off-cycle races. So then we had 16 candidates, and now we have 23 people in office. And I also might say, like, goodness, there's so many other measures. And I think that I think one of the big things we've gotten done is just like tried all these experiments. We've tried running Republicans and Democrats and independents and nonpartisans for office. We've tried running slates and tried running local races. We've tried running ballot initiatives alongside candidates. We've tried running a governance program. So I think part of what feels like the biggest doing to me is just like having discovered so many things through trying out these different pathways. And And maybe the last way I want to answer that question is that, and I see this in the GROW vision statements, is that we've been in kind of a transition period in the last 6 months, and we did this enormous organizational survey of like several hundred people and dozens of one-on-one conversations with people, asking them what they want to see next for the organization, what they value about it. And more than any of our electoral work, the thing that people most said is that this, in so many words, is that our organization feels like a home to them, or a place that they can find belonging. And candidly, that is not what I thought the survey would say. But I think that what it makes me take some comfort, some heart in, is that like we are in whatever we're in together, and there's however our work keeps evolving, that there's this group of people that wants to keep evolving with it.
Well said. Thank you, Katie. I see a few questions in the chat. One is from Juliet. Have you kept in contact or engaged with all the county captains and the constituency groups?
We haven't, or maybe more accurately, they've evolved. So like some of them have fallen away. Some of them have actually become the foundations of slate teams. Some of them have sort of shifted into issue-based campaign work. So we don't interact with them as county teams in the way we did previously, but they've sort of found their way into like, morphing into our new formation. And then in terms of accountability standards, Wendy, we have essentially as our pledge and platform. So if an elected official violates the pledge and platform, we have a document. I'd be happy to share it, but we have a very relational approach. So the first thing we do is call them and say, hey, we heard that there might be a vote coming up about this. We're curious what's going on. We heard there might be some concerns from you, like what's going on. So we'll talk to folks, meet with them. We'll often put them directly in touch with someone that their vote might affect, just to like get to hear more about what the impact is if they vote against on a personal level, if they vote against the platform. And we've probably had this kind of a conversation about four times now, and half the times people have been like, oh, I didn't even realize, or of course, or, it's been like an easeful shift back into alignment. And in 2 cases, we actually ended relationships with the folks that or not end relationships, but sort of ended our endorsement and support of those folks. Because they voted outside of our agreement with each other, our commitment to each other.
Katie, could you share an example of like a concrete win that's come about from some of the work y'all have done?
Yeah, so we the most recent thing we have been celebrating is that there's one of our small towns has a really significant homelessness problem that is exacerbated, or like mostly stems from the opioid crisis and the overdose crisis here. And we ran a slate in that town last cycle, so 2022. They're an off election. And it's an enormous town council. It has 21 people on the council, a very small town. God knows why. We got 5 folks elected, which is enough of them to sort of form like a sub-governing body inside the city council. And they were just able to get the town to create a warming shelter, which it has not previously had. And also that same team of people did the behind the scenes organizing work to keep the longest standing free meal site open in town after it was proposed to get closed. So they don't, and I think maybe this is like a little bit to what John was speaking to, like a lot of what we work with our electeds on is how they can exercise their informal governing power once they're elected, which none of those things happen through town resolutions. They happen because of organizing work behind the scenes.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks for being with us tonight. I hope everybody gathers some inspiration from this, and also just like a reminder that like as we're doing the work as GROW, there's other organizations in other parts of the country aligned with us and moving the country in the same direction from the bottom up. And it's I appreciate you sharing with us, Katie, and it's always awesome to learn with you.
So.
Let's give Katie a round of applause, snaps, fingers, whatever, joy, appreciation. We'll bounce it back to John, who's gonna start closing us out, and we'll be done by 8 o'clock, y'all.
Thanks, Bill. And thank you, Katie. Yeah, I just put it in the chat there, but something you said twice, there's the work, there's the getting people elected. It's the caring and the trying, which comes with the experiments, and it's beautiful. So the All in Favor campaign is the highlight of this first, one of the highlights of this first big tent meeting for all of us here at GROW. And I know that my contact info was put in the chat at some point, and we'll put it in there again for anybody who wants to learn more about it, wants to join in, because as we roll on with this campaign through the years, it's not just going to be a leadership team. You know, the ideal view of it is leadership teams in every county, and from those leadership teams, campaign teams, and people to be out doing the campaigning, people to be talking to their neighbors about what's going on in local government. So get in touch with me, and you never know what will come of it, not just in your involvement, but in people that you know in your circles, and we can spread it out and make it all grow and expand. Because when you look at that values and platform statement of ours, and think of all the people that you know, it's hard to disagree with it, and yet it's also sort of radical. So we're going to be growing from here. And I want to make an appeal to everybody now, in this end of the year season of giving, as we all think about people we have to, people in our lives that we care about. And you know, you're all here in December, on December 14th, in the middle of this month, at the end of the year. And so this is obviously important to you. And so in order to keep this work going and to do it in the best way possible, we don't want to be reliant on big foundations or big donors to keep us going. It takes money to do this work, and the best way to say that is just to say it. It takes money to do this work. It takes money to keep us going. And so I can't think of anything more satisfying to give to than this work. The All in Favor campaign is what we're focusing on in our end of the year fundraising, and we set a $10,000 goal some weeks back, and we're halfway there, because this is speaking to people, and people hear about it. And much like those 60 elected officials I talked to this summer, spring, and early fall, they were all so excited to hear about something like this. They're like, yeah, get more people involved. Oh my God. Nobody's afraid of losing their seat. They just want more people involved. So if you can, think about donating. And if you go to our website, you'll find an easy place to send your financial support for this work we're doing. And yeah, just so happy to be part of this, and so happy to see all of you here tonight. And let's see where we're at, 7:50. I think with that, I'm handing it over to Reba for a debrief. Is that where we're at?
Thanks, John. Yeah, we are just about wrapped here, but it is GROW's tradition that we do not do anything without reviewing it and seeing what went well and what we can improve on. anything worth doing, any time that we're spending together, we want it to be as valuable as possible. We are more powerful together, and we are more powerful when we are disciplined. So I invite everybody here. We only have about 4 minutes for that, and there's still a bunch of us on the call. So the 2 questions I want each of you to reflect on and drop into the chat is, what is one thing you're walking away from our very first big tent meeting with that is going to sit with you, something that you learned or something that's coming up for you? And then secondly, what is one thing that you want to see in a future big tent meeting? We are going to be doing a lot of these. We are going to be spending a lot of time together while we're working together. What's one thing you want to see? Who do you want to hear from in future big tent meetings? And I would love to hear from a couple people also. If anybody wants to come off mute, let me see if I can pick on someone. Wendy DePeso, would you come off mute and tell me what you're, she laughs at me, please. Tell us what you're walking away with tonight.
Well, one of the things that really hit me is that platform is actually enormous. And it's like, oh, I want to do it all. And I'm still working full time. So, but the recognition that if each individual can just pick 1 or 2 things to really devote their time to, that's the way to take it in bite-sized pieces. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how all this comes together. And I'm participating in the training in January. So it'll be interesting to find out what do I not already know about campaigning, about supporting people for campaigning, because we all have had a little bit of experience here and there, but I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also looking forward to the All in Favor campaign to see how that shakes out. Intrigued by the concept of providing support to people who are already elected and to let them know they're not alone, and being able to share maybe strategies for increasing their influence in the offices that they already hold. And I think that part is actually really important, because I have participated in getting other people elected to city council in another state who we thought were going to make a difference. And then they became completely subsumed by the administrative staff, who really, the staff was the power behind their offices, not the people that were duly elected. And so how to, create strategies of how to prevent that or how to overcome that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Wendy. I agree very much. And I'm seeing so much good conversation in the chat and comments. Just to call out a couple of ones that popped out to me, the message that we're not alone here in Wisconsin, that West Virginia is working on the same issues. We are not alone. We are building power across so many different communities here in Wisconsin, beyond, and that is so fun to hear from Katie and other people in this work. Thank you guys all. We are saving the chat, so we want to know what your takeaways are and what you want to see in the future. Really appreciate you all being here and sharing the space with you.
So Reba, I've had my hand up several times. I wanted to just make a quick comment. I was lucky enough to be in a breakout room with Katie and Danny, and I thought something she said just kind of stuck with me, and I was wondering if she might share it again. But it was basically the work that we do as a grassroots organization can sometimes feel really confrontational. But she said in just her, and I'm paraphrasing here, Katie, and you can clarify, but I thought it was really beautiful that our vision speaks more to the things that she said. It was very caring, and our values are very caring, and that they speak to the things that we want to attend to. And I love that word, attend, because I think it's it's sort of the active word saying that we're not just speaking these values, we're trying to live those values. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a shout out, Katie, because I thought that was really, really interesting.
That is very important and very well said. Thank you to
Hey, Reba,
everybody.
Reba, we got a couple minutes. Would you mind if I made a quick comment?
We are running short on time and we have a
No
couple
problem.
next steps. But
Sure.
thank you so much for hopping in, Wayne. If you want to shoot a message into the chat, it's available for everybody.
Got it.
Yeah, we'll read the chat when we're done and we'll get back to anyone. And on that note, thank you, Reba. If you want to reach out to John to get involved with the All in Favor campaign, go ahead and reach out to him, or just put your name in the chat and John will reach out to you this week. So all you have to do is say, me, and John will reach out. Put your name in the chat. Go donate. Our power vehicle GROW is fueled by money. We need money to keep our power vehicle going. So make a donation before the year end. Join the over 35 people that have already given more than $5,500. We're going to be reaching our goal by the end of the year with your help. And I just want to express so much gratitude and joy for being with all of you in the room tonight. We know that when we come together and organize and strategically address the issues in our community with love, we can create the change that we need. And none of us can do it alone, but together we can make it happen. And right now we have this opportunity right here at home on our county boards, on our town boards, to start having a really fantastic impact. And I'm glad that we're doing that together. So let's take that with us. Contact John, make a donation. And those of you who know me know that I cannot end a meeting without a chant. So I want to invite all of you to take yourselves off of mute. And we are going to end this evening with some energy. So, yeah, unmute yourselves. I'm going to say grow and you are going to say power, okay? And we're going to do it several times and then we'll call it a night. So, all right, here we go. Team, I say grow, you respond with power. So, grow.
Power.
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 Grow.
Power.
Woo, you gotta love chants on Zoom. All right, have a great night, everyone.
We got confused.
Good care.